sharing my screen. Okay, so we are here today to look at the APA, which I know is everyone's favorite. This is a GPS workshop, which means if you hang out until the very end and then fill out the professional development survey, you will get a GPS point. I will give you a link to the professional development survey at the very end of the workshop. As it says on this slide, you'll have 1 hour after the workshop ends to complete the survey. And if you don't complete the survey within that time, you actually are not eligible for the GPS point. Okay, so let's talk about the APA style. We're going to cover how APA relates to other citation styles you may have used in the past, why we cite sources and how we cite sources, basic formatting requirements of APA, the link between in-text citations and the reference list, and how to effectively approach and use APA style in a paper. That is a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. All right, what is APA? APA stands for the American Psychological Association. Its style rules were created by the American Psychological Association, and they can be found in APA manuals. The manual provides guidelines for writing as well as proper documentation of sources. The first APA manual was published in 1952, and APA puts out a new manual every couple of years. I think we're currently in the 6th edition manual, or at least that's what we follow at Full Sail. We hear a lot, or I hear a lot of times about why do we use APA at Full Sail. A lot of students have used MLA in the past. High school English uses MLA. I have an English degree and I used MLA, so APA was new for me when I came to Full Sail. So one of the reasons that we use APA style at Full Sail is because it's the accepted citation style for business, and it accommodates the wide range of disciplines studied here. You guys study so many different fields in the entertainment business kind of umbrella that APA will serve you the best. You will be required to use APA style for every research assignment that requires citation throughout your education here at Full Sail. And every class has at least one assignment that requires library research. So all your course instructors who ask you to cite your sources will expect you to use APA. Because it's a school-wide approach to citation, it makes sense to learn it early and also to have refreshers in it as you go along. All right, why do we cite sources? There are a couple of different reasons. When we cite sources, our readers are able to distinguish between our ideas and information and then information taken from outside sources. That means that we, as writers, get credit for our own ideas and give appropriate credit to the ideas of others. When a paper lacks citations, readers assume that all of the ideas belong to the writer. If ideas in the paper belong to an outside source and have not been properly cited, this may be considered plagiarism. When we cite sources, we also show that we've taken the time to study and understand the research and documentation process, which lends credibility to our writing. Any information that comes from an outside source needs to be cited, and this includes quotes, paraphrases, summaries, images, audio, video, game elements, computer software, and other media. What needs to be cited? Lots of things need to be cited. I just went over them all. But again, quotes, paraphrases, summaries, images, audio, again, anything that has been created by someone who is not you needs to be cited. All right, let's talk about the different things that we cite. So we cite quotes. So what is a quote? A quote is a word-for-word passage from an outside source. You have to cite all quotes used in your paper. What is a paraphrase? A paraphrase is when you take a fact or idea from an outside source and you put it into your own words. When you use paraphrases, you guys, really pay attention and be aware that you are changing all of the words, not just the order that they come in. That's a pretty common mistake with a paraphrase. All right, what is a summary? When you summarize, you put the main ideas of a piece of writing into your own words. This differs from a paraphrase where you put a specific idea or fact from a piece of writing into your own words. So think about the way that the way to kind of differentiate is if you want to summarize an article that you read, you want to like sum it up, all of it. This is the most important thing from this whole article. That's a summary. But if you want to say this article talks about this one specific fact and it's really important, and you put that into your own words, it's a paraphrase. If you have questions about summaries and paraphrases, lots of people do. We can talk about it more at the end. All right. What about audio, video, images, and other media? So these all need to be cited as well. There are two different ways to cite media. One citation style to use when you discuss media in a paper, and another citation style to use when you include media in a presentation. We'll explore both of these a little bit more in a little bit. All right, what does not need to be cited? We do not need to cite common knowledge, but what is common knowledge is always the next question. So common knowledge is ideas that are available in a variety of sources and generally accepted facts such as pollution is bad for the environment or writing is a process. If you're still confused about common knowledge, maybe if you think about it like this, it will help. You can usually determine that something is common knowledge if you can find the same information undocumented in at least 5 credible sources. It's important to note that if you read an article and remember a fact from that article, the fact is not considered common knowledge. You must still cite the article. So think about it like this. If you read a statistic from like, I don't know, like a Pew Research survey that was given. If you remember that statistic, it's not common knowledge. Just because you know it doesn't mean that most people would know it. So you would still need to quote that survey in your article. Other things that don't need to be cited include findings from preliminary experimentation. This is just a fancy way of saying experiments you conduct yourself. Or original audio, video, and images that you have created. One thing to be aware of, though, is that if it's not clear that it's your own work, sometimes your audience or your instructors might question you on it. So if you're at all unsure whether you should cite something or not, cite it just to make sure. Cite it just to be safe. All right. In this next section, we're going to get down to the bare bones of APA style and talk about some formatting requirements. There are 3 major elements of an APA paper: the title page, the in-text citations, and the reference list. There are other elements that are not always needed, like the abstract. All right, so let's talk about the title page. This is what the title page should look like, and I'm going to real fast exit out of here and give you guys a link to a YouTube video in the chat box that is really great for setting up your title page. I'm not going to go over how to create the title page in Word because if I did, you guys probably wouldn't remember when you actually need it. So you can watch that video, you can bookmark that video and then watch it anytime you're creating a title page if you can't remember how to do it. All right, so let's look at the elements of a title page. Every title page has a header, the words running head followed by a colon, and the title of your paper in all caps should appear flush left on the header. The page number appears flush right on the header. A thing to be aware of, running head is not all in all caps, but your title is. You'll have a different header on your title page than you do on the rest of your document. On the rest of the pages, you'll drop the words running head and the colon and just put the title of the paper in all caps. Centered about halfway down the page, the title of your paper will appear on the first line. This should match the title that appears in your running head. Sometimes if your title is really, really long, you can shorten it for the running head. Then your name gets its own line, and then finally the name of your school gets the last line. All right, let's talk about the abstract. You may or may not be required to include an abstract in your document. Usually abstracts are only included with longer research papers, such as a thesis paper. When required, the abstract is a brief summary of your paper that immediately follows the title page. If you are having any questions whether your assignment requires an abstract or not, the best thing to do is just send your instructor a quick email. But usually if they don't say it requires one, it doesn't. All right, if it does require one though, the abstract should be double spaced. It should include the page header with the title of the paper in all caps, flush left, and the page number flush right. The word abstract should be centered. You don't want this to be bold or formatted or italics, no underlining or quotation marks. The abstract should be no more than 150 to 250 words. This might vary based on the assignment requirements, but that's usually a good number to aim for. And then you may include keywords in your abstract. You don't have to. If you do include keywords, indent as you would if you were starting a new paragraph, then type keywords in italics, and then type your keywords. Again, abstract is not needed for every APA paper. All right, the next two important parts of the APA paper are in-text citations and the reference list. APA style calls for both. You can't have one without the other, kind of like milk and cookies. They just go together. In-text citations are used in the body of the document. An in-text citation specifies which source a particular piece of information, like a quote, paraphrase, or summary, is from. And it also allows you to find that reference in your reference list quickly and easily. The reference list appears at the end of the document and gives detailed publication information about each source cited in the document. The reference list allows someone to go to the sources you're using and actually see if the quote came from it, or compare what you said about this source to the actual source itself. If we didn't have in-text citations, we wouldn't be able to identify which ideas in a paper came from an outside source and which ideas came from the author. If we didn't have a reference list, we wouldn't be able to find the references used throughout the paper. Again, in APA style, you need both. In the next few sections, I'll be going through a lot of specific detail about formatting for in-text citations and reference lists. Don't feel like you have to memorize everything. It's a lot of information, and to be honest, no one has it memorized. A bit later, I'll show you some resources where you can find the same info when you need it. And that's really what people do with style guides like this. Very few people have the entire rules memorized. They just know where to go to find the rule that they need. So that's what we're hoping this workshop will do for you guys. All right, let's talk about in-text citations. What should the in-text citation look like? The format for in-text citation can vary depending on whether the information used is a quotation, summary, or a paraphrase. And there are two basic types or basic formats for in-text citations. This is the same whether you're citing a quote, a summary, or a paraphrase. Sorry, I lost my place. All right, so you can use what's called a signal phrase. So if you look at the first example, this is a quote from a Writing Center blog. We've used the author's last name in the sentence after according to, and then we've put the date in the parentheses immediately after the author's name, and the page number, or in this case, the paragraph number, at the end of the sentence. When we put the author's name in the sentence like this, it's called a signal phrase. If you choose not to use a signal phrase, it's fine. The last name of the author and the year of the publication go in the parentheses at the end. Either way you choose to do it is fine. If you use a signal phrase, you don't want to put Chapman and 2012 in the parentheses at the end. So it's fine to use one or the other, but don't use both at the same time. So, does that make sense? Hopefully it does. If not, I can go over that in more depth. All right, let's take a closer look at the format for citing quotes. In APA style, there are two formats. We just talked about them. And then there are also two formats for depending on how long your quote is. If your quote is under 40 words, you would cite it like this. So this is an example of a quote that's under 40 words. For quotes that are less than 40 words like this one, you need quotation marks surrounding the actual quote, the author's last name, the year of publication, and the page number. If you don't have the page number, you can use paragraph numbers. And a period appears at the very end of the citation. If the quote is more than 40 words, it should look like this example here. Things to notice. We must use a signal phrase. In this case, we're using Chapman 2012 states. We do not need quotation marks, but the quote is indented and starts on a new line. And this is a little bit of a strange APA rule. I don't really know the reason for it, but in this format and only this format, the period appears at the end of the sentence rather than at the end of the citation. We also haven't done it in this example, but if you omit words, phrases, or sentences within a quote, be sure to use ellipses. Those are the three periods altogether. Marla, I'm gonna answer this question a little bit later. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, so let's hold this one till the end, okay? All right, we've looked at quotes. Let's look at paraphrases. In this example, we're citing a paraphrase. We used an idea from the article we're citing, but we didn't use a word-for-word quote. We put the idea into our own words. We still need to include the author's last name as well as the year of publication. But with paraphrases, it's not necessary to cite the page or paragraph number. All right, now let's look at an in-text citation for a summary. Like with a paraphrase, we still need to cite the author's last name and year of publication, but not the page number. It's not actually incorrect to include the page number, it's just not required. I rarely use the page number when I'm paraphrasing or summarizing, just because I don't want my readers to think that I forgot my quotes, my quotation marks. But again, it's not wrong, it's just not necessary. All right, sometimes we encounter sources that are tricky. They don't include the information we need to create an in-text citation, like the author's name, date, or page number. How do we handle those sources? If there's no author listed, we use the first few relevant words in the title of the article or the book in place of the author's last name. And the title should be in quotation marks. And it would look like this. If there's no specific author listed, but the information comes from an organization or company's document or website, we can use the organization's name in our in-text citation. Sometimes this happens when you have like studies done by the Food and Drug Administration, or you have a quarterly earnings report from a company. Those are not often given authors, they're just, you would just use the organization or company. All right, if no date is listed, we use the abbreviation ND, which means no date. And then often page numbers are not available if we're citing an online source. If we're citing a quotation, we should cite the paragraph number where we found the quote. This usually means you run through and you number the paragraphs on your own. If we're citing a paraphrase or a summary, again, we don't need the page number, so we don't need to include anything. And again, this is showing you the difference between using the signal phrase and then using just the in-text citation itself. All right, let's talk about the reference list. We're going to start by looking at formatting requirements. Like every other page in your paper, your reference page needs header. The header should look like the rest of the headers in the paper with the exception of the title page header. So it should have the title of your paper in all caps, flush left, and the page number flush right. References should be centered at the top of the page, just like with your abstract. You shouldn't use bold, italics, and it shouldn't be underlined. Your sources should be listed alphabetically by author's last name. If an author has more than one work, organized by date of publication. And the reference list should be double spaced with no extra spaces between sources. Every line after the first line of each entry should be indented. This is called a hanging indent. I have another video for you guys. Again, the hanging indent. I'm not going to tell you how to do it in Word or go over that because if you're like me, you'll do it and then you'll forget and you'll need a source that shows you how to do it. All right. Electronic sources should include clickable URLs. And then let's actually take a closer look at reference list entries and how they work. The first step in deciding how to cite a source is to decide what type of source you have. Is your source a book, a magazine, newspaper article, journal, website, personal interview, YouTube video, or another type of print or electronic source? APA has specific rules for citing different kinds of sources. So each entry, regardless of the type of source, will contain the author's name, if we know it, the title of the work, and publication information. This is where they vary. The type of sources vary. So information needed depends on the source you're using. It's important to identify the type of source you have and then look for the example of how to cite that particular source. Oopsie, sorry guys. For this example, we're looking at a reference entry for a blog. However, if we were citing a book or an online newspaper or a video game, the citation would have a slightly different format. So we list the author by last name and first initial of first name. In this example, we have a single author, but your source may have multiple authors, no author, or an organization as an author. The date in parentheses comes after the author. In this case, we're citing a blog, so we need the complete date, including year, month, and day. For some other types of entries, you only need the year. Again, you want to check examples for your specific type of source. Notice that only the first letter of the first word in the book or article title is capitalized. Every word that comes after the first word begins with a lowercase letter, except proper nouns and any word that comes directly after a colon. Proper nouns are always capitalized, and the word that comes directly after a colon is always capitalized. And also you'll notice that it kind of looks a little bit like a sentence, the title of the article of the blog post that we're typing. After each line, the entry is indented. Again, you do the hanging indent. For a blog citation, we have to note whether this is a web blog or a blog comment. So in the brackets, it says web log. That's like shorthand. That's the longhand for blog. And for any electronic source, we need a URL. The words retrieved from are followed by the permalink to the source. All right, so we've talked about kind of a basic reference list entry. What if we don't know the author's name or the date of publication? For this example, let's pretend that the article we just referenced has no author listed. The title of the article moves to the front of the citation in place of the author's last name. Let's pretend that the article we just referenced has no author listed, but we know that an organization, the Full Sail Writing Center, published the article. The name of the organization goes in place of the author's last name. For this example, let's pretend that the article has no date listed and no author. Just like with the in-text citation, we use the abbreviation ND for no date. Again, this front section, whether it's the author's last name, the organization as the author, or the title of the article that you're quoting from, whatever is in that front position in your resource should match up with your in-text citation. All right, so we've talked about how to cite ideas used in a paper. What if we need to cite media in a paper? For example, let's say we're in a photography class. Our instructor asked us to find a photograph online and discuss its composition. We aren't including the image in the paper, just referring to it. How do we cite that? If you're referring to a specific piece of media in your paper, then you need to cite it in APA style using both in-text citation and the reference sheet. This is the sample citation for an image. You also need to cite other media like videos, music, computer games, video games, movies, TV shows, etc. if you refer to them in your paper. There are specific reference list entry formats for each of these types of sources. All right, what if you need to cite media used in a visual presentation? For example, an image or video taken from the internet you wish to use in a PowerPoint or Keynote, like I'm doing right now. If you're reproducing the image in your presentation, you need to follow these 3 steps in order to cite it correctly. 1, check the copyright license. Make sure the image is licensed for reuse under Creative Commons. 2, include an image URL on each slide where the image appears in the presentation. If you look at the bottom left of this slide, you can see an example. It's extremely light, but there is a URL at the bottom of this slide. And the idea is it doesn't have to be bold, it doesn't have to be prominently placed, but it does have to be there. And then you need to include a reference slide in APA style at the end of the presentation. This is our reference list for this presentation. All right, how to find images. There are a few places to look for images that are licensed for reuse. I'm actually going to pull up a couple of them just so you guys can see. One of them is compfight.com. Here, I'll give you guys this link and you can bookmark it just in case you think you might need it. You can search for photos and you can, CompFight can take you through how to do this easily. Check out the frequently asked questions. They have a really great section on photo licenses. You can search specifically for things like Creative Commons. So this is a great one to use. The other one that's really great to use is actually our library. So if you go to Connect and you come over to the library portal, the library has actually pays for these research databases. And some of them that are really good to use are the AP Images collection. And where's the other one? Sorry. The Oxford Art Online. You can use any of these, any of the photographs or pieces of art that you find on these. And these can be especially great for like if you're wanting to show like a historical piece or something like that. All right. So at this point, you're probably feeling a little overwhelmed by everything you're hearing. So APA is complicated and it has a lot of specific rules, and it seems like a lot to remember. But remember, like we talked about just a little bit ago, you don't have to have a photographic memory to use APA. I'm going to give you some tips that should help you for when you're thinking about using APA. Become familiar with the basic elements of an APA paper. We just went over all of them together today. If you start writing your next paper and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not sure where to go, we archive these videos. So if you go to the Writing Center on Connect under our videos page, you can actually go back through and see this month's APA workshop, or you can go to last month's APA workshop, and you can just watch these and go through step by step. My second tip is pay attention to your instructor's requirements. Is APA required for the assignment? How many sources has your instructor asked for? Do you need to include an abstract? You can always use a manual as a reference. We have manuals available in the library, so you don't even have to buy one. You can refer to an online APA resource. These are kind of my favorite. I wanted to show you guys two of my favorite ones. One of them is, I'll provide both of these links actually. All right, one of them is the OWL at Purdue. It goes really, really in depth. The OWL at Purdue is great for any kind of writing you do. And then the other one that's really good is projectapa.info. Sorry about that. Projectapa.info is actually made by some instructors at Full Sail who wanted to make you guys' lives easier for you. So this is projectapa.info. It breaks it down by in-text citations, formats of quotations, paraphrase, and summaries, works by multiple author, works with no date, direct quotes, secondary sources, personal communication, etc. And then it has the reference page that does the same thing. And what's great about this is some of the time the things that you guys have to quote in your work that you're doing at Full Sail is hard to find on places like Purdue OWL. You kind of have to wade through a lot of stuff. They focus more on the traditionals, so books, journals, databases. This one breaks it down by things like electronic books, blogs, and websites and social media. This is one that I use all the time. How do you cite a tweet? How do you cite a YouTube video? These are a great place to look for those. Actually, that one would be an audio-visual media. But you know, this shows a music single recording, online video, a podcast, print cartoon, etc. This is a great website to use. I really love it. And then I'll show you the Purdue OWL really quickly. I always forget what its URL is. But if you come here, you can just, like I Googled it. It's the first thing that comes up, APA style. The formatting and style guide is what you want. Tells, you know, it goes through a lot. In-text citations, reference list, APA stylistics. So if you have any questions, those two are both really great to look at. We're going to come back here for just a minute. All right. So another tip is always check to see that formatting, in-text citations, and reference list entries match examples that appear in the manual or online resources. After you've created your entries, go back and check to make sure that they match. Both that they match the examples that you've seen, but also that they match each other. Make sure that if you've said in your reference list that this source is Food and Drug Administration, make sure that that's what you're using in your in-text citation. And when in doubt about a documentation issue, ask your course instructor or make an appointment with us at the Writing Center. For more information on the Writing Center, visit the Writing Center website on Connect. You can read more about APA, you can find out how we can help you during appointments, and you can find out how to schedule appointments. I'm going to actually show you guys the Writing Center on Connect really quickly because it's my favorite. We try to like do a lot for you guys on there. If my internet wants to cooperate. All right, so if you come up here in your search bar and you search for the Writing Center, this is us, and it pops up and it looks a little bit like this. And the great thing is that we have lots of resources for you. We have a frequently asked questions, so if you're wondering about how to make an appointment or anything like that, pop over here, frequently asked questions, we'll walk you through it. We've got a bunch of online resources. Here's our videos page. So these are all of our archived videos. You can also find the videos by coming down to more. We do a blog for you guys. So if you have a question, you can usually find a blog post that we've done on it. Another way that you can search through the blog is if you come down here, and I'm missing it. Oh, it's literally at the top. If you click on blog, you can look for the blog posts that we've done that focus on APA or proofreading or creative writing or grammar. Those can be really helpful. And then here are some really great PDFs that we have that you guys can look at. The APA visual guide is really good. I definitely recommend using that if you ever have any questions. So don't hesitate to use the Writing Center. We definitely want to see you guys and talk to you guys. I am going to, yeah, this is the APA document formatting. It goes into a great amount of information that you can look at. I like it because it's both visual and wordy. Okay, I am going to provide the GPS info in the chat session, but I'm also going to open it up if anybody has any questions. Feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat log. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can, raise your hand. I don't know if you guys have ever used that. It's the little hand symbol, or you can throw out a message on the chat. You can also send it privately to me if you want. You do that by just changing who it's going to. I hope that, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I didn't catch that GPS link.
It's in the chat log. If you still don't see it, I can put another one in there, but it's the last link that I posted.
I just got it. Yes, ma'am.
All right, excellent. All right, guys, I'm gonna hang out here for a couple more minutes. Yeah, you will have to sign in to connect to fill out the website or to fill out the form for GPS. If for some reason the form is not working, I am not in charge of that, so I would suggest contacting FSO. Um, if that takes longer than an hour, send me an email at writingcenter@fullsail.com, and then I'll try to make sure you get your GPS point, but I'll have to talk to people about it.
I appreciate this. This class meeting really helped.
Excellent, Scott. I'm glad to hear that. Again, if you find yourself with any issues, you guys, after you've done, after we get out of here, I definitely recommend watching the archived videos, but I also can't recommend using the Writing Center enough. We love it when you guys come in and let us help you. We have online and on campus appointments. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The only thing I will tell you is that it does take 24 hours to schedule the appointment. So if you are needing an appointment on Monday, you have to contact us by Friday.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Just a fast question.
Yeah.
If if I instead of me clicking on that link, can I find that same form through the Writing Center? Or no, it's a special link that I have to go through?
You have to go through that link. The GPS points, I don't really handle them. And so that's actually through professional development. They handle that form. I'm not sure where to find it except through the link.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.